Greetings all. This is Nick, your most eccentric and unshaven source of X-Wing the Miniature news here on YouTube. How is everyone going? Now, you may notice that I'm in a bit of a different space now because I have recently moved house. Hence, I missed a little bit of X-Wing news, and I'm not exactly the first to get to most of this. We've had a couple of new spoiler dumps from AMG, both of them on the Rogue Class Starfighter, one for a few Scum Pilots, and another for the CAD BANE pilot on the Separatist, as well as some ship-specific cards. So, without any further ado, let's dive right into those. Starting off with those Scum Pilots, because I am a bit of a biased Scum player, and, well, it came out first, so whatever. Let's go through them, least to most hype, in my opinion. Starting out with the Outer Rim Hunter, an Initiative 3 pilot with no ability. Now, we've previously spoken about the frame of this ship, and I just want to, before we go on to anything else, sort of speculate on where this kind of thing might land points-wise. I can see this very easily starting out as a 3-pointer, maybe with a very minimal amount of upgrade points to attach onto it. We're going to have a look at a couple of upgrade cards it could take later on. Maybe it would have enough not to take the title, but the cannon card we're about to see, I think that could make sense. I think a generic like this is really going to struggle at 4 points. I'm going to repeat this a lot in this video, but the sort of the loss of granularity is going to be really telling with an upgrade pack like this. Because obviously this was designed before AMG decided to drastically change the rules in the way they have. So, and also being a generic pilot, we haven't really seen much love for those so far yet. I think one of these named pilots is probably just going to see play more than this, but we'll get onto that in a second. Before we do, Victor Hell's back. This is a Kiraz pilot as well. Had the same ability in first and second edition. Frankly, it's never been relevant. They've put on the same ability on this, and I think it's interesting on this ship because it's a bit more of a knife fighter. At least that's the impression I'm getting moving forward, where the Kiraz fighter's a bit more of an all-rounder. But yeah, basically if you defend and you don't roll exactly 2 green dice, as in you defend at range 3 or something else modifies the dice, the title that we're going to have a look at can affect that. It's cool. You give your opponent a stress token. It's a lot to ask for a fairly meh payoff. It's a shame because, frankly, it's the coolest name in all of X-Wing. It's a very nice paint job. I think a lot of us are going to have a lot of fun trying to freehand that little white sort of V-ish shape, kind of like tusks going down the side of the cockpit there. It looks really, really cool, but I don't know. I don't see this ability being that great. Certainly the other named pilots that we've seen so far, basically all of them, are way more interesting than this. So let's move right along. Let's not dwell on this too much, because I want to talk about Non-Lum. This is very, very interesting. Not because I think it's so powerful it's going to break the game open, but because it's an Initiative 1 pilot with a really cool ability that might sort of be a really good filler ship. Initiative 1, at the start of the engagement phase, you may choose one enemy ship in your forward arc. If you do, treat your initiative as equal to that ship's until the end of the round. And this is just a cool little, I don't want to say ace hunter, but it's a ship that can block and then sort of duke it out with higher initiative ships before it gets taken off the board. You know, it's not overpowerful, but to have this on a potentially quite a cheap little frame is very, very tantalizing. Now, if this gets a light build and gets put out at 3 points, this could be great filler material. On the Scum faction, we only have a couple of 2-point ships in Ahav and Nadru Salak. I think this is just a little bit too powerful to put in the 2-point category. I don't think this frame is basic enough to be down in that spectrum. But having said all that, I really like this ability. You got to remember that being a low initiative for the sake of activation isn't always just a bad thing. It often is, but being able to block your opponent's ships is very, very powerful. And then having almost no downside during the attack phase. It's not like it's just you always fight at a higher initiative. It's got to be in the forward arc. And, you know, you've got to have the right ship in the forward arc. And your opponent's got to have a higher initiative ship for this to be relevant. But it just means that it can't be plinked off the board and then you get no way of responding unless like they sort of joust you out with an ace and that kind of stuff, and that kind of thing can happen. But what I'm saying is it's very relevant. If your opponent's using their ace to sort of arc dodge and joust your cheap little ship, you've done the right thing. You've basically made your opponent prioritize something which is cheap and little. I am saying all of this basically assuming it's going to be 3 points. I think 4 points with a heavy build, it's going to be asking a little bit too much of the list building crowd, but I like this with a light build at 3 points, potentially with the title that might be asking a bit too much here. But yeah, nevertheless, really, really cool. Before we move on to the Separatist pilot and ship-specific upgrade, I just want to give a massive shout out to the patrons of this channel. Thank you all so much. It really does mean a lot. I cannot stress this enough. YouTube ad revenue is frankly terrible, and we basically can't afford to keep moving on with this channel if we don't have some kind of reasonable way of funding it. And the direct support we get from Patreon is fantastic. Special shout out to JJ Ron. JJ, how are you going? I believe that you, my friend, have at one stage or another been at every tier in my Patreon, and I greatly, greatly appreciate that, bumping up the tier to $5. And if anyone would like to join the Patreon, the link is down in the description below. I have recently altered the tiers, so now the lowest tier at $1 gets you access to the Patreon disc. So if you want to be part of all that, link down in the description. Now, back to these cards. And I want to, before we get onto this last pilot, just talk about these upgrade cards. Again, with this newer article, let's go least to most hype. So let's start off with the Proton Cannons, a very, very interesting looking cannon. It is a 4 red dice attack in the bull's arc at range 2 to 3, has 2 charges, and attack you spend 2 charge. Change 1 eyeball or hit result to a crit result. So it having 2 recurring charges means you can use it once every other turn. So you spend both charges, at the end of that turn you get 1 back, and at the end of that turn you get 1 more. So yes, you're taking off 1 turn before you can use this again. So we want to be comparing this directly with Heavy Laser Cannon. Now Heavy Laser Cannon is a card that has a very similar kind of attack, except you lose all your critical results. They turn into regular hits. But you can use that turn and turn again. With Proton Cannons, you can use it every other turn, but you're actually upgrading one of your results. You could actually upgrade a focus result while you have no focus tokens, and that's very, very powerful. And I think what we have to appreciate is sort of the downsides of Heavy Laser Cannon in that the results are worse, or this in that you get to shoot it less frequently. And I think in this equation, Proton Cannons probably wins out most of the time because it's a range 2 to 3 bullseye shot. It's not easy to get, and honestly the odds of you getting that turn and turn again, look, it might happen, but the odds of you doing that are relatively low. Honestly, it's fine even with Heavy Laser Cannon, even if you're only using it like 2 or 3 times a game. And I think that does a lot to mitigate the downsides of this. Now, if you happen to only have the opportunity to shoot this twice, 2 turns in a row during a round, it's going to feel pretty bad. You're basically losing an entire attack because of the downside on this card. I just think mathematically over the course of a tournament, that's going to be less and less likely. I'm talking speculatively here, obviously. We don't really know how the frame's going to do at lining up bullseye shots. It should do quite well at it, but it doesn't really have any high initiative pilots as far as we can see. It seems like they do cap out at 4 unless we have a pilot better than CAD BANE. So, long story short, I think this is a better card than Heavy Laser Cannon and will probably be costed a little bit more, but I don't think it's crazy better. But yeah, turning a focus to a crit on a cannon is very, very spicy indeed. Okay, let's move over to Xanadu Blood. This is the title for the ship, and it has absolutely no restrictions on it whatsoever. It can go into any pilot, Separatist or Scum, which is cool. And given how powerful this is, adding a crew, a bomb, and a red cloak, I think it's not going to be a free title. I think, realistically, the way AMG are doing the point structure now, it would be weird if this was 0 points, because you'd basically only ever take one of these ships and you'd stable this on every single time if it was 0 points. It really devalues the second ship at that point. And I think, honestly, AMG have made a few missteps when it comes to the point structure of this, but I can't see that happening with this. Fingers crossed I'm not wrong there. I think that would really suck if this card was 0 points. I think it would cause some balancing issues with a ship that you actively have to buy 2 of them. You don't have the option of buying 1 of them. Needless to say, this is very, very powerful. A crew slot on this could be very, very interesting. Can't think of any like really busted options. I guess we could have like BT1 on the CAD BANE on the Scum faction for like a stress build. That could be very interesting, but you know, I think the real spicy thing here is the fact that it has Red Cloak. It helps Victor Hell a little bit because now we have a way for your pilot to actively control the amount of green dice you're rolling. I don't think it's going to make Victor Hell playable. I'm just saying it's something that does help that pilot that he previously didn't have, so that's cool, I guess. But even so, just slapping this on either of the CAD BANE pilots seems like a very powerful thing. Yeah, it just seems really, really solid. And lastly, let's move on to this new CAD BANE for the Separatists. Again, Initiative 4, just like his Scum counterpart, during the engagement phase, after another ship at range 0 to 3 is destroyed, you may spend 1 charge, he's got 1 and it recurs, to perform an action, even while stressed. So it just means you can't do it a lot of times in 1 turn. But given the actions on this ship, that seems awesome. Apart from anything else, if you take Xanadu Blood on this, you can do a Red Cloak, even while stressed. And that could theoretically be after CAD BANE has already had the opportunity to shoot. This ability is obviously quite powerful on the Separatist faction because, hey, guess what? You have a lot of squishy ships on the Separatist faction with the Trade Fetty drones. Alongside a swarm of them, I think this is quite interesting. Now, whether this is like just better than a Belbalab taking some kind of tactical relay remains to be seen. I think this is probably going to land somewhere at the power level of General Grievous, you know, depending on the amount of upgrade points, but I can see this being 5 points quite comfortably. Yes, it's obviously quite powerful. And alongside Xanadu Blood, alongside the potential actions that it can get from the various crew members. I'm not as familiar with like Separatist crew myself. I'm not really a Separatist pilot, but there's going to be some really, really powerful things there. Even just like having that red boost, for example, being able to like snake around asteroids. It's kind of weird setting that up because you have to rely on a ship being destroyed. Notice how it doesn't say your ship or your opponent's ships. So what I'm saying is a list that takes Trade Federation drones will aid this. But just by blowing up your opponent's ship, you're activating this. So you don't even have to do that if you don't want to. This seems like a lot of fun, it seems powerful, and it doesn't really seem to ask you all that much. I think this is a more interesting card than the Scum CAD BANE, which, as a Scum player, makes me kinda sad. But that's okay. We don't have to get everything. Sometimes other factions have to have some love. I completely understand. And look, if I were to just draw a little Mandalorian logo over that Separatist logo, I apologize. I really want to try this on the Scum faction. Don't judge me. I'm just a massive fanboy. And with that, that's all the new information we have about the Rogue class Starfighter. No doubt very soon we'll have some more information from the pilots from the Republic Z95, so stay tuned for those. Stay tuned for stuff going on here in the channel. Yes, I have just moved into this new place and this room is frankly a mess. I really dislike the cupboard strip wooden thing right here. That really bugs me looking at the monitor. Maybe I'm going to turn the camera this way into the corner and I'm going to, you know, have some nice posters up here and do all kinds of stuff. And I do have a dedicated studio space as well. Some exciting things coming up. I've already spoken about some of the kind of different video content I want to work on, but now I actually have a much better space to do that in. We're going to have the table out again. We're actually going to do some on-table content again. Being that we're moving into 2.5, it seems like a lot of people are sort of really wanting a very good broken down, simplified method of getting into 2.5. I know when this whole thing happened and, you know, AMG posted information on various forums and you got to download the rules document online, that kind of stuff. Things with 2.5 haven't been a smoother transaction. Definitely not as smooth as version 1 to 2 was, so I'm going to try and step in and sort of help out with that a bit. But it's going to take a lot of work. There's a lot of work I have to do here in the new house, and I'm looking forward to that. And once again, thank you to everyone that sort of follows the channel. Not just those of you who contribute to the Patreon, but obviously, thank you for that. If you are a subscriber here, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Ring the bell, because people are telling me they don't even see that my videos are coming out. Thanks, YouTube. Really appreciate that. Anyway, Thank you all so much for watching as always. And as always, I'll catch you all in the next video.